Hi, welcome to SynerVision Leadership Tuesdays at 2. This is Hugh Ballou, founder of SynerVision Leadership Foundation, and my guest today is my good friend Sherita Herring. I call her the queen of nonprofits.
Hi.
So Sherita has been a friend for many years, and she helped me get the SynerVision Leadership Foundation off the ground.
Yes.
And taught me how to get it started. So she's an expert on how to launch your foundation and how to set it up. Sherita has lots of knowledge on lots of topics, but today I want to talk about funding, especially how do you make your organization more attractive to those foundations that want to issue grants. But before we do that, tell folks a little bit about Sherita Herring, where you live, and why do you have this passion? I watch you work, and you have this passion for building nonprofits and empowering people to make a difference in communities. So a little bit about you, where you live, and why have you gravitated to this space and become such an expert at this?
Well, Hugh, one of the things that I found is that we all have a burning desire, and it's planted in us way before we even knew it. And what really validated that for me was actually researching on a grant proposal. And I found that there's proven statistics that shows that who we are, what we love, whether our likes, dislikes, or whatever, shows up in us by the time we're 5 years old.
Wow.
So I've always been one to try and help somebody. I was one of those kids that if at school, they have what's called, and I don't know if I can say that, hopefully, how they say I have the stinky kid.
Uh-huh.
I was always the one, instead of teasing that stinky kid, that's the kid that I take home.
Oh.
And there was there was one girl that she smelled, and you could tell that she went to the bathroom on herself often, or maybe slept with a brother or sister that went on her. Well, she smelled like that. Well, that's the girl that I'd bring home, and my mom would, a lot of our clothes were from the Goodwill too, but you never would know it. So I was always bringing that kid home. And then there was a guy that lived up the street, Mr. Brown, older guy, and if he was raking his yard, if we're playing kickball, I'd say, you guys, let's go up and help Mr. Brown. I'm not going up and help Mr. Brown. Well, I'd go and help Mr. Brown. So that has always been me.
Mm-hmm.
And so you gravitate to who you are and what you love. And one of the things that I also noticed, everything that I love, also I was doing it in high school. I was a junior class president. I was, in my sophomore year, I was the secretary. In my freshman year, I was the treasurer. Well, I ended up running for office as an adult. When I was in high school, I was always on those committees that helped to develop and raise dollars to expand the programs and services in school.
Mm-hmm.
As an adult, I teach grant writing, and I help businesses show up and build their capacity. So whatever you truly love, it keeps showing up in your life. And so this is just a natural thing. I had no idea about nonprofits. I had no idea what grants could do. I just kept doing what I loved, and I just happened to become a director at a YMCA. After I moved here to Los Angeles from Kansas City, Missouri, I was looking for programs where, as a single mom and moving to a city that I didn't know anyone, I wanted a job that would allow my kids to also be there. And I just happened to be looking in the newspaper and saw a YMCA, and the rest is history. I went there, became a director. From there, I started my own company to be able to work with organizations ongoing. So it's like my path. I just kept following what felt right for me. And that's why I teach people how, no matter what your passion is, there's profit for it. Because I believe that the original GPS is God. And as long as I follow what God gives me, and I keep him in praise, and I stay in service, what better GPS is that?
God's power system,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So
yes.
In the first edition of Nonprofit Performance, you wrote an article about nonprofit as the stepchild of business.
Stepchild of business.
What is that about? It's coming out next week.
Well, you know what? When you hear the term stepchild, you always think negative. Even with fairy tales, if the stepchild was always the one, like even Cinderella, she was the stepdaughter, and the mean stepmom. See, stepmoms are also looked at negatively too. People always expect more of the stepchild. And even when they show movies, the kids from that parent will get away with everything, but they want the stepchild to do more. Well, when I look at the way people are about nonprofits, They expect they have unreal expectations of nonprofits.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, when someone starts their for-profit business, they don't go looking for someone else to raise their money. They pull up lift their sleeves and they get in there. But the moment someone starts a nonprofit, oh, I need a grant writer. Instead of them looking for their dollars, they want to go and get a grant writer. And I've seen people that have been trying to get investors or get money for their business, trying to get it in revenue for 15, 20 years. But the moment someone starts a nonprofit, the very first grant that they submit, if they don't get it, oh, I knew I should not have started a nonprofit. You have unreal expectations, but a nonprofit is a corporation.
Yep.
And grant funders are investors. So you have to be prepared for those investors.
So they're investing for results, not for profits.
They are the result.
Absolutely.
Their return on the investment is what the dollars do, and is also the write-off, instead of them giving dollars and expecting a financial return.
So what does all this have to do with successful grants? So if you want to get a grant, you just hire somebody to write it, or is there more to it?
There's definitely more to it. For one, Hugh, I can't tell you how many organizations I've heard them say, you know what, I've hired 5 grant writers and we haven't been successful not once.
Mm.
For one thing, I asked them, have you ever taken a grant writing class yourself? And they say, no, I'm not going to be my grant writer. But if you don't know what is expected in a grant,
mm-hmm.
if you don't know what a good grant writer sounds like,
mm-hmm.
see, when people are going after dollars for their for-profit, they know what should be, what that investor looks like, what it sounds like as far as what should be on their documents.
Mm-hmm.
But no one wants to do that same kind of homework when it comes to a nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
And so a grant proposal is not just an application like filling out for employment. It is talking about you. It's talking about your background, your strategies, who you've been working with. The grant writer doesn't automatically know that. See, a grant writer, think of a grant writer as a stenographer, because that's all they are. A grant writer is a stenographer. They listen to you, and then they fill in the grant application.
They don't have a magic wand.
No, and people expect that magic wand.
Yeah.
So, but see, a grant proposal is asking about your structure. It's asking about your strategic plan. It's asking about who are you and what have you been doing. It's asking about who are you going to be working with and what are the issues that you're going to address. When you hire a grant writer, they don't know that about you. They have to interview you and pull that out of you.
Right.
But it's not as hard on the grant writer if you also know what is included in that grant proposal.
Absolutely. So there's some organizations that are more attractive to granting organizations, and you talked about investors, and we work with entrepreneurs
mm-hmm.
a lot, and many mm-hmm. of them are raising money, and there's certain things that investors look for.
Mm-hmm.
The strategy.
Yes.
What are the measurable outcomes that
yes.
I'm sure grantors
yes.
want to see? What's the impact of this money? Your budget. Have you got really sound financial projections? Do you know how much cash you need for what, and are those projections tied to your milestones? And then, do you have a really clear vision that's practical, and have you proven it's going to work? And the final one you've alluded to, but I want to talk more about that, is the people side of this. Do you have the team that can actually implement? Do you have the community empowered? So are those in the business world and their investors? If you don't have the team, it ain't going to work. So exactly. that's a big one. That's like, have you built the capacity of your board, and does your staff have the leadership skills? So is that one of the important benchmarks with grants as well?
Definitely. And that's why, too, they want to see collaboration. See, oftentimes that qualified staff doesn't have to be right up under your umbrella.
Uh-huh.
See, when you collaborate, because let's say you and I collaborate,
yes.
see, then you don't have to worry about having that hired staff is your collaborative partner, okay? See, Hugh, no matter how much money you're looking for, whether you are a hospital looking for $20 million or you're a child care center that only needs $10,000, a grant funder only asks 5 questions. Only 5 questions. Who are you? Meaning your experience.
Mm-hmm.
What have you been doing?
Mm-hmm.
Who is your target population?
Mm-hmm.
What are the issues that you're going to address with that target population?
Mm-hmm.
What are the expected outcomes?
Yes.
And then how much money do you need?
Okay.
So whether you're building a hospital or need toys for a child care center, you're still answering those 5 questions. And so often when someone says they're ready for money, Sherita, I need a grant right now. Oftentimes they're still not ready because their structure is weak. Maybe they don't have a good board of directors.
Mm-hmm.
And so often, Hugh, whether it's a small business or a nonprofit, so often their board structure is not correct.
Oh.
See, because your state has a different set of guidelines than what grant funders and also the IRS looks at.
Really?
Some states only require that you have one board member,
Correct.
and it can be you.
Correct.
If you think of yourself as an investor, okay,
Mm-hmm.
and if I'm asking you for $500,000, and I have one board member and it's me,
Mm-hmm.
how comfortable are you with corporate governance monitoring what goes on with your dollars if I'm the executive and I'm the only board member?
Not very.
But people don't think about that.
Uh-huh.
And see, you are an investor. Grant funders are investors. They just want to make sure that the money is going to do what you say it's going to do. So that's why they ask, who is your board and what are their affiliations? Not that they want to keep the board with their thumb on you. They just want to make sure that if you say you're going to do what they're approving you to do with their money, that that's what happens with it.
Their affiliations.
Their affiliation. So let's say that I'm a teacher.
Right.
They don't want to see my after school program have a board of directors they're all the teachers right there at my school.
I see.
Because then they're worried about corporate governance. They may feel that all of us we're all hanging out together all the time anyway. We may go after work, after drinks. Well, we might take that money that they're giving and we all go to Vegas.
Oh.
So they want to make sure that your board members are coming from various organizations, different backgrounds, so that there's some diversity in your board of directors. They are looking at that.
That's an important piece.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
So it's not about just writing the document to match what the grantor wants to see. It's about them looking into the fundamentals of your organization. Now, that's part of the purpose of SynerVision Foundation is to help nonprofits build out these systems.
Yes, yes. Because see, again, when you're writing about your board and the diversity, you are writing what they want to see. See, so often when they ask the question on a grant, it seems very generic. They may say, what is the structure of your board? That may be all they say. But they're wanting to see board diversity. They're wanting to see how often do you meet. They're wanting to see how involved is your board with some of the decision-making processes.
Mm-hmm.
See, though that question may seem just very vague, they wanted an experienced grant writer and an experienced executive would know how to answer that question. Excuse me, Hugh. Let's say that I just answered the question they asked, what is the structure of your board?
Mm-hmm.
And as a grant writer, I just said, we have 5 board members on our board, Dr. So-and-so, Mrs. So-and-so, the JBE company, and that's all I said. If you had the set of eyes and ears and knowledge of grant writing as the executive, you would be able to see that grant writer answered it too weak. And that's why I teach executives